sometimes it's good to bring in more outsiders just to kind of give you a different perspective. If they've already played against your team, they could talk about different, tendencies that they've recognized in the past that they feel should be changed. Because sometimes when you're in the organization, your head's down the entire time, you can't take that step back and see like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be running the football, on first down and trying to pound the rock every single time throughout the second half instead of, just getting into a shootout, and not controlling the clock the entire time. Maybe there are certain things like that outsiders would say where it's like, okay, maybe this is a good perspective. Maybe we got to change things up. So I think it's always good to approach it with an open mind. But again, I like the move this time around, and I'm glad that we did promote within.
Yeah, I'm fully in agreement with the Brady call. What you were just talking about is, and Roy, your question to me is a bigger discussion around Bobby Babich. So, because I want to talk about that more. Um, so let me give you some of my notes on Babich. Obviously, a lot of people saying good things about him, and what I do like, Jake, is that we have an insider who's very excited about him, and that's your brother Blake. Your brother
Oh,
Blake, I
yeah.
think, went to the college. Is that you? Give us the background on that.
Blakers was at Edinburgh, and in the 2016 season, Bobby Babich was slated to be their defensive coordinator. So they had basically an entire offseason and spring workout season with him, basically being in that role. But then they ended up firing the entire staff, and they brought in a new coach, Coach Lustig. And I think at that point, Bobby Babich left to go to Florida International. And Lustig did great things there at Edinburgh, but Babich was excited to obviously be that coordinator role. And I don't think he was going to be in the same coaching capacity, which is wild to think of because the guy's brilliant. Ends up going to Florida International, and then the rest is history. Goes from there to the NFL. He's been with the Bills since 2017, and he's done some very good things. I'm really happy with the hire. He's young. He's energetic. He may bring a different approach, and from the sounds of it, it actually does sound like Sean McDermott's going to let him run, not really, maybe not his own scheme, but maybe have his own twist on it.
Yeah, so that's where we get into a little difficulty for me. So let me bring up some notes. I wrote some notes down here. So he's been brought up through McDermott, right? He's worked with McDermott, even back in Carolina, I think.
Yep.
And here he has been with the Bills since, like you said, since 2017. Yeah. So my other points are, no matter what role you are, as far as the coaching staff goes, and in this year it was linebacker coach, you would think so. In my organization or any organization that I worked at, if you're in a role such as the linebacker coach and your goal is to be the defensive coordinator, they all meet. All these coaching staffs for the defense, they meet probably weekly to go over the film, talk about things. And I would feel like Babich should be throwing out ideas for where we've been weak, right? Where we've been getting, beaten in the playoffs, falling short, and come up with some ideas, right? You throw out those ideas. Now, whether they're accepted or not, I don't know. So I just don't think because you were a linebacker coach, you had nothing to do with the rest of the defense for this particular year. So keep that in mind because, like I said, I feel like he's already been contributing to what this defense has been doing. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Number 3 that I have here, is he just going to be a yes guy to McDermott? He's been brought up. This is, McDermott's his mentor. Jake, and I don't know if you ever had a mentor bringing you up through the ranks, and if that mentor has a different of opinion with you, are you going to stand strong on your feet and argue with them, or are you just going to be like, okay, coach, you're right, or are you going to go toe to toe? Ultimately, the head coach makes the decision. So that's another concern I have. He's McDermott's been his mentor, and he just might be that guy that just says yes. I don't know. And again, I think all the coaches are already given their ideas. It's not like he didn't have a say on how this defense was playing. Yes, I know. You said already he's been the cornerback or the DB coach. He's been a linebacker coach. He should be throwing out ideas as well on how that defense can be better already. So I'm a little concerned, like, is he going to bring something new? Is he just a guy that, McDermott wants to just hand off to the pressers, right? To go take care of the press conferences because McDermott has to go into those. I think they always have the OC and the DC doing their own press conference, and I think McDermott has to double down and do those. I think.
Yeah.
And to go back to what Sean had said and you had said earlier, I do think looking outside from a defensive standpoint, because we've seen this defense, we've seen it, right? And everyone's like, it's not going to change. It's not changing with McDermott at the helm. And I don't know how much it will change. Is Bobby Babich got all these great ideas that he hasn't shared already, Jake? Like, is he all of a sudden going to come up with all these new things that he's been thinking of doing? I would think he would have been sharing those already. That's my only thought there. Maybe why didn't we look at somebody in the ranks of Steve Spagnuolo. Sorry, I always get his name right. I struggle with his name. Maybe someone in the ranks from the Bengals organization, teams that we have done a good job defensively against us. And they got some young guys over there as well. If you want somebody young with a fresh mind who's been learning from some of the best, those are the two best defensive coordinator teams I can think of. You got the Chiefs, and then you got those Bengals. So that's my only concern is, I've heard a lot of good things. You can say that he's done a great job no matter what position he's been coaching, but I do have a concern that it's not going to be anything different. Bring in these guys that have been from other organizations that have been playing against us and being successful against us. That's my only thought there, Jake.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair take. And I as a rebuttal to, you mentioning like Steve Spagnuolo or even Lou Anarumu, those guys are not going to make a lateral move at the position that they're at. Like
No,
it's head coach or bust. Oh,
Jake,
just
is
someone that's
somebody under
underneath.
them, under their
Okay.
coaching staff.
That
Okay.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. But anyways, no, I think those are all valid points, Mike. I definitely do. To me, it sounds like Sean McDermott is going to take kind of a step away, a step back, and just be the head coach, which is it's encouraging because this is something that I really wanted. Like if he was to remain the head coach of this team, just to be the head coach. And like the head coach obviously has the ultimate say on everything, anyways, at the end of the day. And if something is going astray, he will let these guys know. But I feel like in the past, it's been so much of that it's kind of sort of taken away from his ability to manage a game and deal with these different tight situations. And that's why you're seeing the results that you're seeing. So I'm hoping that's the case. Fingers crossed. I'm Optimus Prime all the time with this stuff. But yeah, I love the move. Bobby Babich, football family. Blake says he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Shout out to Derek Dorr, too, another guy, one of Blake's best friends, his roommate at Edinburgh, played for Edinburgh as a defensive tackle. Also vouched for Babich, says he's brilliant, a mastermind. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's a fresh, young guy, a little different than Leslie Frazier too. To me, I was also hearing too. Brett even mentioned it. We may run a 4-3 at times. I don't know if that's going to be. So you saw a little bit of that this year, and I think that was due to the lack of personnel that we had on defense and the fact that we had to go into that bigger package, not play nickel so much. So I'm curious to see what we do there. Obviously, Taron Johnson is a second team All Pro, so you got to keep that guy on the roster, and he's got to still be on the field. So how often you actually go into the 4-3, that's to be determined. But it would be something very interesting to see. You have Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Dorian Williams on the field at the same time. I mean, that's a pretty damn athletic linebacking core. So that excites me, the possibility of seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, Babich, what is also good, not only, I take Blake's opinion very highly because he's your brother and you guys just know football. And if he's excited about him, it's good to have an insider's take. He also had interest from the Giants, the Packers, and the Dolphins as well. So that says a lot, right? If Dable, that's Dable. Dable saying, hey, we got to talk to this guy. So that right there says a lot because he was on the Bills. He knows Babich very well, and then these other teams. But it all comes down to in my opinion, again, would I have preferred they look elsewhere? That's a tough one, Jake. Like I said, I don't think any OC is going to come over straight up. What I meant was look at people like Brady. I'm sorry, not Brady, but Babich. Babich wasn't the defensive coordinator. He was part of our staff. He's a linebacker coach. Look at somebody else under those two other defensive coordinators that I talked about, and maybe it's time for them to be promoted. And then they can bring over what they've learned with their defensive coordinator. But with all that said, I'm always for promoting people within. I have to trust what everyone's saying. I have to trust the fact that 3 other teams were interested in him. What I don't know if I can trust is, will McDermott pull back? Will he pull back and let him? And again, so let me ask you this. So he's been brought up under McDermott's scheme.
Yeah.
What do you see him potentially changing? Let's say he gets the reins, and that's a great point. Roy Collins saying, we'll see if Babich calls the play on game day. What do you see potentially different?
My thing is, Roy, I don't think you promote a guy to defensive coordinator if he's not going to call the plays. Like, what's the difference then? Like, if anything, if he's not going to call the plays, maybe he just becomes an assistant head coach or something. But and he takes over for even Eric Washington, because we lost him to be a defensive coordinator in Chicago. So that's why I am leaning towards the idea that he probably is going to be calling plays, because I feel like there's no reason to even promote him then. You know what I mean? Like, why would he stay here if he had other opportunities to be the defensive coordinator for other teams too? That's another thing that makes me believe that he's going to be able to implement his own scheme. Probably going to be very similar to Sean McDermott, because that's what he's coached for the past, 6 years now. That's what he is familiar with too. And I feel like we do have the personnel for that. So it makes sense. We might not have the personnel after free agency. Who knows? I mean, we're going to have a lot of free agents, especially on that defense. So going to be very interesting to see what happens there on who we resign and who we end up getting in the draft and all that good stuff. But I think that definitely is going to be very telling of the type of scheme that he runs too. You know, if we go real big on the D line, there's a chance that I wonder too, like, do you even switch it up? You go to a 3-4. I don't know if we even have the personnel for that, but if you get these bigger, you get a guy like Tavondre Sweat, who's 6'4", 362 pounds in the draft. That dude can play nose. You kick Eddie Oliver out, and then you run 3D tackles. You make Greg Rousseau a linebacker. Maybe something happens like that. I don't think we're going to go that far outside the scheme, but I will say I do agree with some of what Brett said. Maybe we go to more of a bigger package at times and run more 4-3 as compared to just that base nickel all the time.
Yeah, Roy saying Eric Washington took a DC job knowing he won't be calling plays. That's why I asked about.
Yeah,
Babich.
That's true, because Eberflus will be. Yeah, that's a good point, Roy. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, and they really haven't come out and said anything about that. So I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going to say that he is, just because we've known Sean McDermott to be such a micromanager. So why would he promote someone internally if that was the case? Maybe he does realize that he needs to take a step back and just be that head coach.
I think he just wants to, put him out in front of the press. Like, you go talk. This is what I want. This is what I want you to say.
That's kind of what Leslie Frazier was, right?
Give me a break. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be tough. If you're a micromanager and you've been around as long as McDermott has, it's hard to break habits. It's hard to break them.
True.